leading zombie apocalypse channel, broadcasting live from Studio Z.
Makes me act the way I do.
And welcome to the Dr. Zed Show. I am your host, Dr. Zed, and we are going to have a very special episode today for this zombie apocalypse medicine meeting special event today. We should have special guests, Amanda Gallagher, zombie resuscitationist, and also purveyor of delectable brains, I must say right here, because we've got some pretty good eats here. We also have Clint Kalin joining us, which is a truly exciting event.
Thank you, Joe. Amanda, where did you get this brain?
I mean, like all good brains, Clint, I got them on the side of the road. Probably hit by a car, but they looked okay.
As long as it's body damage.
Right. So is it safe? Is it safe to eat roadkill? I guess that's the question.
Well, I mean, it kind of depends on what's going on with the reason they died. So if you cook it well enough, possibly okay. You know, recommend cooking your brains for a good, I don't know, at least 15, 20 minutes. Get your little meat thermometer out. Make sure they're high enough to kill any bacteria in there. But, you know, there's other things that we can't kill by cooking. This one's particularly jiggly.
Right. I do notice that mine is pretty jiggly. I think this may be a raw brain. Tasty stuff. And let me ask you this. With your brain, are you pairing it with a libation that goes well with it?
Yeah, I'm drinking a nice Syrah.
Okay. I went and chose a Malbec. This is a 2019 Argentine Malbec.
That's nice. I have a Bosque Brewing Elephants on Parade, but that's mainly because that was what I've been trapped in my garage with.
I see. And Dr. Drew, tell us what you're eating.
Well, since you can't really know what a brain might taste like, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that my brain could be fruity paired with a Steel Bender Brewyard Raspberry Dynamite. Great pairing for these afternoon, or I should say early fall afternoon when you might be enjoying brain.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is so delicious. I can just taste the healthy fats in this brain, loaded with omega-3 fatty acids.
I'm worried about the blood streaking across the top of it. The hemorrhages, whether traumatic or medically induced, could give us pause. But should we maybe throw caution to the wind?
That's true. Oh, it looks like we have a comment from the audience, from Charlotte Kendall. Oh wow, this is gruesome and appetizing at the same time. Care to comment, Amanda?
I mean, that's what eating brains is, appetizing and gruesome at the same time. You know, in the 4 days we didn't eat that many brains, but now it seems to be the thing going on.
It's kind of a fad right now that we've entered the apocalypse. It's
the new fad diet.
And as best as we can tell, correct? These were not monkey brains in the before times genre and theme of, say, Indiana Jones. I mean, these were brains of zombies that have just passed their prime.
Yes.
Another comment. The audience is complimenting us on our brain eating politeness.
Well, I mean, it's an apocalypse. We don't have to be sloths.
Yeah, and we'll see how long that lasts.
That's right.
There's not much left. This might be all we have to keep humanity together.
That's true. So Dr. Zed, you know, I've delivered all these delicious brains. Any thoughts on any concerns we could have with brains, or?
Well, I would say that Pamela Winfrey's spot on right there.
Oh.
I have a little tremor going on.
You're fine. I think you'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay, I'll
worry.
just ride this one out. I think it could be the internet connection.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's anything to worry about.
Nope, I think you're right.
Okay. All right.
Nobody's actually near Joe right now, right?
No, no,
Correct.
Okay.
no.
So I do remember reading in the before times that there was a disease you could get from eating brains, but at the moment it's kind of escaping me.
The kuru, are you talking about human brains there, Dr. Zed, in the before times?
Geez, I'm being told to finish my glass of wine. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You could don't spill it. It would be terrible if you spilled it.
My cerebellum is giving me some issues right now.
I believe, Dr. Zed, you were referring to kuru, are you not?
That's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Kuru. Kuru is a spongiform encephalopathy. It's transmissible.
That was my most
transmissible like a
favorite,
virus.
most favorite word in the before times.
Encephalopathy?
No, spongiform encephalopathy.
I see.
Yeah.
And when you say spongiform encephalopathy, you mean because the brain kind of gets spongy?
Right. You get holes in the brain.
Like this. Oh, I mean, maybe not from a spoon, but
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
And
Amanda,
so-
was there any way that you checked these brains for safety? Was there anything that you noticed about when these came, or do you just kind of take your chance?
I mean, I squished them a little.
Okay.
They didn't-
I have noticed that the texture is just right. It's it's
Other-
really quite delicious and perfect.
But these
Do
are
you
from
mean other than
elk, so
yeah. Oh, they're from elk. You mean
Elk?
like
That's a different deal.
elk lodges, like the people in the Elks Lodge.
Okay. Well,
no,
that
like the animal. So they should be safe, right?
Well, gosh,
that
chronic.
rules out kuru. because
Yeah,
you don't
I
get
feel better.
kuru. Is just something that happened in Papua New Guinea among the Foray people, and pretty much in the 1950s. There were some cases as late as 2006 because of the long latency period. But just to revisit the kuru deal, it's mostly women that get it because of a ritualized cannibal ceremony that they had, in which women and small children would eat the brains of the recently deceased.
Yeah, I think
Well,
like 14 to 1,
Yeah.
women to men.
Wow.
Something like that, yeah. Elk, though, you're a hunter, aren't you? Here's a comment. These are kind of big for elk.
Well, it's an
Well-
apocalypse.
It's apocalypse. Have you seen what has happened to the elk in the after times, Gwyneth? They're huge. There's no, massive.
Okay.
Makes it harder for them to be brought down by the walkers. if they're a
So
little bit bigger.
what do you know about elk, and why would elk be a problem?
If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Zed, in the before times, there were some chronic wasting disease issues between elks and other animals that you could get, if I'm not mistaken. Are you doing okay, Joe? You're still shaking hard. I'm worried about you.
I'm just enjoying my meal.
True.
Chronic
Yeah.
wasting disease. Okay.
Yeah.
Which was kind of like kuru, but in elk, right? And deer?
Yeah. The zoonoses, if you will. That's
All right. I can
I didn't know
understand
that-
it from cannibalism, eating human brains, but are elk cannibals?
No, but neither are cows, and that doesn't explain another zoonoses that is similar in nature, wouldn't you say?
That's true.
Well, that's
So
actually
Maybe
in the
Clint, you
before
could
times.
explain-
Yeah, in the before times, there was really actually quite a bit of regulation behind what cows and other kind of food animals could eat, and in feed, a lot of things just kind of got thrown into the mix, and they think actually that back then there were actually sometimes occasionally stuff that from the central nervous system, be it the brain or the spinal cord, it's actually more along the lines of the spinal cord that you have to worry about because it's right next to the meat there. That just every once in a while ended up in the food supply of some of those animals. And back then they had a really good system of sorting things out and keeping things separate. It's broken down a little bit. Beggars can't be choosers, and you just have to make sure that you kind of check things out before you take an animal and decide to eat its brain.
And if you are, as Amanda pointed out, just picking up kind of what's available, you can't really be very choosy about things, right? Brains or not.
Calories are scarce these days.
Calories
like
are
you said,
scarce.
I don't let anything go to waste. The other day we saw a raccoon crossing the road, staggering a little bit, but it got hit by a car. I stopped. Waste not, want not. That is my credo.
Did it try to attack your car before it got hit by the car? Joe?
It was snapping a little bit as
really?
I was. Yeah. You know, it's raccoons chase cars, as you know, or do they?
Not usually. Neither do coyotes, as that matter might be, or dogs. Well, actually, I guess dogs.
Sometimes. But bats are the other thing that
Yeah.
Huh. Would there be any benefit? Ilana
tiny
Rain asks.
brains.
Well, I have a tiny brain, so that's working for me.
Yeah. I guess I'd have to ask Liana, are you asking like to eating the tiny brains? Because you just have to eat more of them. That's why, I mean, if you're going to eat a brain, an elk brain would be more helpful. I don't know of any, I'm not familiar with any direct zoonoses from small rodent brains, but I never have had a connoisseur taste for small brains, just big ones.
Okay. Well, if people are worried about me and my tremor,
how well did you cook that raccoon?
You know, I like it rare. I like it bloody.
I mean, because there's no rabies cases known from people actually eating rabid animals, but there were some cases of some guys who butchered some dogs to eat them, and then they got rabies, which, you know.
The dogs did?
The people did.
Yep. Ooh. All right. So it's probably just best to stay away from a rabid animal.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a good food source.
Yeah.
What particularly should we be worried about?
Well, you know, there's two things we've kind of covered. We'll get to Esma Gell's question.
I don't know. I don't know what to say there, Esma.
she liked her brains. Let's just show that again. She did eat cow brains growing up. Quite delicious, boiled, dressed with lemons.
We don't have any more lemons in the after times, so
it's a shame.
All right.
But at least you had good food regulation, you know, in the before times when that was going on.
Eating brains is not necessarily bad. You've eaten brains, Amanda.
I have eaten brains, yeah. And I'm still here.
Yeah.
In the after times.
You know, so in the before times, as Esma points out, people seriously did eat brains. Matter of fact, I'm sure you can go to places right here in Albuquerque, although it's difficult these days to find a good taco stand that serves sesos or brains. But that's a thing. They're tasty. I've had them.
Hard to find any good taco stands in the after times here, Doctor said.
That's true. It's after the event, food became scarce, as you mentioned.
True.
So tell me about this prion business. Is that like a Prius?
It's kind of like a Prius. So a prion is a protein. And if you think of proteins as kind of like pieces of rope that you use and they fold in a certain way, and we all have them. And for some reason, this piece of protein gets misfolded and causes all kinds of mayhem, like difficulty walking and difficulty talking. A lot of people, what they die from is difficulty swallowing.
I see.
And how does that work, that a protein can actually do that?
That's a great question, Clint. I think we needed more research in the before times. We're not really sure why this happens. It can happen spontaneously in some people, and we call that Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease.
Mad cow.
Which is its variant. So Creutzfeldt-Jakob variant is mad cow disease, which is what kind of happened in the 80s and 90s in Europe. That's also why until that crazy COVID apocalypse hit us before this time, you couldn't donate blood if you had lived in those countries during that time, because we know you can get it through blood transfusion. We also know it could be in your body for 20, 30, 40 years before you develop symptoms.
So you're saying that all of us could have some of these crazy Priuses in our bodies?
We could have crazy Priuses in our bodies, and they can happen spontaneously.
Are they alive?
Or Teslas, either one. Doesn't really
matter. Dr. Z, I think, because it tends to take control and pilot itself. And so I'm going with Dr. Drew here and saying it's much more like a Tesla than a Prius.
More like a Tesla than a Prius. I mean, if we're going to, in the after times, talk about things from before. Yeah. And, I think Amanda's point is that, as Esma brought up, right, you can transmit that from during the preparation process, during the rendering, and Clint made a point of in the before times when there were good regulation, the issues associated with offal and rendering of dead cow parts to feed back to dead cows might have contributed to some of this. And maybe, Asma, it's best to say that we just didn't know it existed in Turkey when you were growing up. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's rare, and it's got this latency period, so that's kind of frightening.
That's the tough thing, because it could lie dormant for quite some time.
Mm.
And Dr. Drew, I've got a couple carcasses hung up in the garage here.
Uh-huh.
What do you think I should avoid? What's the best way to avoid when I'm butchering my meat? Kind of dealing with some of these things. I mean, besides just going in full force and embracing it.
Obviously we're talking about a structure that exists almost exclusively in the central nervous system, so brain and spinal cord. And I think Clint picked this up earlier, is that if you don't violate the kind of tissue planes and involve the central nervous system, spinal cord, or brain and contaminate other structures, then you're okay. It's only when you're either eating directly, as we are with this delicious brain that Amanda has provided for us from this elk that looked kind of sickly, right? And wasn't walking straight down the street.
But that's a beautiful meal.
It is a great meal. I've had to pause.
Kendall has this comment. Iron stomach in medical school. Well, they do teach us to eat quickly. All of us in emergency medicine learn to eat as fast as possible, no matter what the content is. If it's a little bit of delicious brain or
delicious beverage, doesn't matter. As we run out of more and more food from the before times, we have to learn to savor them more.
This is why we're doing so well.
But I think the important part, Clint, is if you're not contaminating during the butchering process, if we don't cut into the central nervous system tissues, then there's no way to really pass along these abnormally folded proteins, these prions, or I love the fact that maybe from the Tesla standpoint, since they're automatic and will make you do strange things, that you don't end up contaminating those things. And obviously us enjoying these delicious brains that we have available to us here. If we're unfortunate enough to live long enough in the after times here, I'm not really worried about how quickly the latency might be. I think we'll die from something else before that.
Yeah. It could be like a chronic disease. You could die from something else beforehand. That's true. So Lee has asked, I got some sheep. This is going to resonate with you, Dr. Drew.
Mm-hmm. Are they very itchy?
I don't want to waste anything. Surely their brains are safe to eat. Turns out Dr. Drew is a sheep farmer and a sheep shearer. He knows his way around a sheep dip.
Indeed. And you still, if I'm not mistaken, I think, Amanda, you made a little reference there that was very tongue-in-cheek about something we need to be worried about.
Yeah, so potentially sheep could have something that they named scrapie, where these sheep would scratch themselves so hard they would end up with huge wounds on them. And turns out that they also had a prion disease. And it may be what actually caused chronic wasting, because some sheep got penned up with some deer during an experiment once in Colorado. So sheep, I think kind of what we were talking about, butchering safely, because not all sheep brains would be safe to eat.
Sorry, Lee. And again, sheep herder, hours are raised to mow the grass, to keep the approach and the fields of fire clear around our compound here in the after times, in addition to making wool. And if we eat their brains, they will not make any more sheep or wool for us. So file that away for what it's worth.
If that scrapie phenomenon, the fact that it invades neural tissue and it really acts like an infectious disease, it acts like a virus, it acts like a bacterium, it acts like it has a mind of its own. These prions or Priuses, whatever you like to call them, they're really quite something. They really do follow some of the rules of life, despite not having any DNA. They don't have DNA or RNA, what we typically think of as being genetic material. They just are a protein.
And I think that's one of the things that makes this so difficult, is we've not really been able to figure out, as Amanda pointed out, why this protein structure folded a certain way. It's harmless, causes no problems. We deal with it. And then with an abnormality in the folding, and then on a certain level, we're not sure, but at a certain accumulation level, yes, Erica, these are truly, like if you wanted to say the living undead, I mean, prions fit that definition, and we don't know why. Just like we're not 100% sure. Maybe Esma driving a Prius could be a sign. I don't know. Where you find your rapid chargers now in the after times is beyond me, but I won't go into that. And that's, I think, one of the big issues that we haven't never been able to really unravel before society came apart.
Well, I must admit, Amanda, you really served up some delicious brains here. Any thoughts about having a brain cookbook?
Oh, in the after times? I mean, sure. We're going to die from something else before we die from a prion disease.
That's true.
At least in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, Athena Actipus has a little comment here about self-replication. So if you're going to follow the rules of life and behave like a living thing, perhaps be alive. It doesn't matter if it's genes, memes, which also that brings it to a whole different level, or proteins. Are we saying that, like, when we talk about things going viral online, that's actually alive?
I believe that has been discussed, has it not?
I think, well, we talked about zombification by tech. That's been a major theme of this zombie apocalypse medicine meeting. Yeah.
And it does require a host, and I don't know what happens. What happens when we all go away and we can't use this wonderful internet to communicate in the after times? Do the memes, is it a parasite or is it symbiosis?
They would live on forever, would they not?
They go extinct. But the prion thing really is amazing. The idea that they can affect proteins in your brain, affect your behavior, make it more likely that you become preyed upon by a zombie or a mountain lion or whatever. And the fact that the proteins can move down the spinal cord into other tissues and even go down the vagus nerve into the gut, or from the gut, vice versa, up the vagus nerve into the brain. So it makes its way, these misfolded proteins make their way into all kinds of tissues. I guess that makes sense, since the nervous system is in all of your body, not just your brain.
True. It's really the final common pathway for most every other body and organ system, if you think about it.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just crazy that they can barely, they're so resilient. A prion can live up to like 16 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. That's like a crematorium. They're real hard to get rid of.
And I think to Clint's point is not covered or addressed by appropriate temperature cooking. We talked about this earlier today, Amanda, about you apparently drag around an analog thermometer with you to put in someone's body cavities. We'll leave that as it is, or to check some food temperature. Something. And that's clearly, for even very well done meat, not going to destroy the structure and the integrity of a prion particle. Yeah.
So do people get scrapie, or do they just get this Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, Amanda?
So they're kind of all the same thing, right? There's some different variations in the folding of that protein. I don't think there have been any known human cases of scrapie, but there's also been no known human cases of chronic wasting, although some people got Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease and they thought maybe it was the spontaneous version, but they had been eating some elk, so maybe there was some correlation. I just think we don't see enough of it to have a good correlation. So I wouldn't risk it.
Yeah. And
Athena's point, memes feed on brains, right?
They do.
Maybe it's the electronic prion.
Could be. Here's a question I have for y'all. Have you guys seen a zombie eat a rabid animal? Could we use this as a bioweapon in this fight?
I will point out that Steve Schlossman, who has been a featured guest on the Zombie Apocalypse Medicine meeting today, he wrote a book called The Zombie Autopsies, in which the causative organism responsible for zombification was a combination of prion and a virus. So like rabies and a prion. Crazy stuff.
Yeah. I don't think rabies would be a great bioweapon for a zombie. Number one, is their nervous system working? Number two, rabies travels at like 10 to 20 millimeters a day of nerves to get to the brain. So that's like a slow death. That's not helping you escape.
True. I don't know what you're talking about, Neil. Everything's fine. Everything's fine here.
And I don't think I wouldn't worry about Dr. Zed and surgeries. Whatever he's doing, you'll be fine.
You will be fine.
He operates better with a little Roja. Don't worry.
Don't we all?
That's for sure. Well, maybe we've exhausted the subject. Prions, rabies, Creutzfeldt-Jakob, scrapie, mad cow, transmissible spongiform encephalopathy, otherwise known as kudu. We've covered it all, folks. And at the same time, we had a delicious meal. So thank you again to the cook. My compliments to the cook. Good stuff.
Bon appetit.
Bon appetit, everybody. And until next time, till the next meal.
Yes, and remember, everyone, doesn't matter. You can eat it raw. Doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you cook it enough.
Absolutely.
Enjoy.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
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 I know it's crazy, but it seems so logical. I can't deny that there is something supernatural with you.